Good afternoon, everyone. In this lecture, we will discuss about industrial disputes and settlement machinery. This is a very important chapter. Please do understand this chapter very crucially because various questions have been arriving in the EPF examination based on this chapter. I'll show you an example of this also. See, these questions came in the last two papers of EPFO: arbitration, adjudication, conciliation. And this, I'll tell you, these are the basic definitions. If you can prepare and understand these concepts very well, then you will be able to solve these questions without any issues. And similarly, apart from this, see, basic PYQs are coming. If you understand the basic definitions, you'll be able to solve them. Okay? See these PYQs, which of the following disputes considered as trade dispute under Trade Union Act? See, it's a basic definition that they are asking. Similarly, based on what is strike, what is lockout, basic concepts. They're not going very deep into industrial relations. They're only touching the concepts superficially. So understand these concepts, understand these basics, and you will be able to counter any type of question. Okay, so let's just start our chapter without any further ado. So first of all, in industrial disputes and settlement machinery, in the first lecture, we'll talk about industrial disputes definition. What are the impact of industrial disputes on various stakeholders? Then we'll talk about what are the types of, what are the causes of industrial disputes? Is it only economic, or are there any non-economic causes of industrial disputes? Then we'll go on to the consequences of industrial disputes, that what does happen when industrial disputes happen. The consequences are strikes, lockouts, and there are various types of strikes, as you can see from here: stay away strikes, hunger strikes. All of these strikes you must have heard either in your history subject and even in post-independence also, and even in the real world too, that you must have heard about various strikes and various industrial disputes that have occurred in the recent past. Okay, so we will study all these things. Then afterwards, we will study various methods of settling these industrial disputes. What are the various provisions within, what are the various legal provisions that are present in the current legal regime in India to settle industrial disputes. Okay, so first we'll start with the definition of industrial disputes, and we'll just focus on what is the legal definition. Okay, we'll not just go various scholar wise, because legally these things are important, and based on these legal acts the definitions are being asked in the examination. Okay, let's move on to what is the definition of industrial disputes. So we are starting our chapter, industrial disputes, conflict. So first of all, we'll talk about what are the definition of industrial disputes is provided under section 2K of Industrial Disputes Act 1947. See, although whether it will be Post-Independence Act or the Trade Unions Act that was asked in the question, the definition of industrial disputes is same, and I'll show you how. So this act says industrial dispute is defined as any dispute between, what all are the parties of the dispute? It covers everything. It covers that any dispute between employer, when two management or two departments are engaging in a dispute amongst each other, employer, workmen, when management and workers are engaging in a conflict, and it also provides for disputes arising out of workers and workers, between workers and workers. All three aspects have been covered. And now for what? We have understood that it is between these parties and dispute regarding four key points are given in this definition. Dispute regarding employment, then non-employment, then terms of employment, and last but not least, working conditions. Okay. So the definition which is under section 2K of Industrial Disputes Act 1947 says that any dispute arising between employer-employer, employee-worker, worker-worker with regards to employment, non-employment, terms of employment, as well as last, working conditions of any person. This is the sole definition of industrial disputes as per Industrial Disputes Act 1947. Okay. So once you understand this definition, you will be able to solve the given previous year question that I have just shown you. Okay. So definition portion is finished. Nothing else is required here. Okay. Now let's go to the next thing, that what are the impact of industrial disputes on the industry and how does it affect not only the workers but the management, but also the country, government and people in general. Okay. You must have heard about 2012 Maruti Suzuki incident. Here an industrial dispute happened because there was a dismissal of a worker and it led to, unfortunately, death of a HR manager. But this conflict led to various detrimental impacts on the industry. And how? First of all, whenever there will be a dispute, the normal working will not be there. So the production will stop, leading to loss of revenue. Obviously, the targets will not be met. Understand? And it will lead to inefficiency because monthly we would have wanted 100 cars, but we could only produce 80 cars, 20 we couldn't produce because of the strike or the industrial conflict. Another thing, then whenever we are mentioning about some particular target, okay, so we are thinking about cost structure also. Suppose if we produce only limited amount of production units and the revenue will be less and the costing will be high, because even though the production is not working for those 20 units, but the machinery is open, the rent is going on. So all these costs are up generating without generating revenue. Obviously, so increased costs will be there. And in turn, the profits will reduce because the revenue will be reduced, increasing costs. So obviously, the profit portion will be reduced. Economic loss will not only be limited to the management, but it will also be extended to the workers who will not be getting any wages for the amount of days they are not working. So it is economic loss for not only one stakeholder, every other, and it will also extend to the government in general, because for those 20 units they could have got the tax, but because of industrial dispute they couldn't get it. And last but not the least, loss of public image. Who will work in a company where industrial disputes are frequent, where your life is in danger? There is no safety assurance. who would want to work in such type of company. So obviously the public image of that company from the employment perspective and also from the general public perspective will be damaged. So these are the basic impact of industrial disputes on various stakeholders. Okay. Now let's move on to the next thing, which is what are the causes of industrial disputes. So first, economic causes and also non-economic causes. Economic causes, you all might have heard about these things when we were discussing about collective bargaining as well as industrial relations, that management and workers have competing interests, not complementing but competing interests. First one is, in economic cause, they argues that wage becomes a reason for industrial dispute. How does it become a reason? Worker wants to increase its wage. Management wants to reduce its costs. Obviously, both parties are working against each other, hence industrial dispute. Similar is the case with another thing, which is distribution of profits. The workers who have worked very hard for the company to generate such amount of profits, obviously they would want a portion to be distributed amongst the workers. But management want the whole profits to be applied in a new venture to generate much more profits, and they don't want to distribute this. Competing interests, hence industrial disputes. Another thing in economic causes is the working conditions. Which includes safety measures, first aid facilities, hygienic conditions. If such things are not provided to a worker, then obviously worker would get into an industrial dispute with the management. Understand it? These are the basic economic causes that leads to industrial disputes. One more thing is that there are various legal provisions with respect to leave with pay and working hours. These legal provisions are provided under various labor laws. Usually what happens that despite these legal provisions, various employers do not follow them. And because they do not follow them, workers feel that their right have been, that they are getting exploited by the employers despite having legal rights. So this results into industrial dispute. Okay, so these are the basic economic causes because of which industrial disputes occur. Now we move on to the non-economic causes. What could be the non-economic causes? Not related to the economic benefits, but with related to various attitudes and behaviors of different stakeholders. So the first one is non-recognition of trade unions. Why would management want to recognize trade unions until unless there is a legal provision with respect to their? because management thinks trade union will be a collective organization that they have to be obligated to discuss some issues of workers with. So they would not want to recognize trade unions. So this will inherently lead to industrial dispute, because workers would want trade unions to be recognized, because they want a collective body from which they can convey their issues and grievances to the management. Sometimes the management shows authoritative attitude towards workers, that will not increase your wage, do what you may, you have to work continuously for 8 hours without break. So by following such authoritative behavior, they are not only exploiting workers, but they are also reducing their dignity by disrespecting them and by humiliating them, by not respecting their rights that have been provided not only by the constitution but also various statutory acts. Okay, so this is why these things comes under non-economic causes which are responsible for industrial conflicts. Another thing is non-redressal of grievances. When a worker thinks that even if I take my issue with the management, but the management is not even approachable, and even if it is approachable, it is not responsive towards the issues of workers, then obviously these things will get saturated at one point, and then it will obviously break out into industrial dispute. So these are the basic economic and non-economic causes that cause industrial disputes. Let's see other reasons within economic and non-economic causes. Let's brush them once and for all. Wages and allowances we've discussed, bonus we've discussed, leave with pay and working hours we have discussed, working conditions we have discussed, and retrenchment and undue promotions. They say retrenchment is laying off employees, undue promotions, that promoting people without any substantial reason. It creates a sense of discrimination within the working environment. Okay, so this is an economic cause. Don't confuse it with non-economic cause, because since these things are related to the wage itself. Here we have discussed in non-economic causes that non-recognition of trade unions we've discussed. Job insecurity is another reason why people are insecure about jobs, because they are seeing that various companies are laying off their employees. And unless the employer provides them assurance about job security, why would they have any morale with respect to working in the unit? So obviously they would want a security, and if the employer is not ready to provide security, this may lead to industrial dispute. Next is outside leadership. What is outside leadership? Let's understand this. Usually trade unions are officially recognized by some political parties. Okay, so these political parties also have their agenda with respect to national policies and state policies. But trade unions which have solely workers benefit in their mind, if it gets addition with political agenda, then obviously this will create industrial dispute. Political parties would want to extend their agenda and would want trade unions to do strikes and Ghira for their political purpose. So these things may also lead to industrial disputes. Next thing is inter-union rivalry. In various organizations, there are numerous factions within the trade union. Factions, what do we mean by that? That there is not a single trade union, or within this trade union, two parties, X, Y, compete against each other to become a formal member that can negotiate with the management. It's like an election. So two different parties are competing in an election to get a seat of highest seat of trade union. So between these two parties, the workers might get involved in some disputes. So these things can also lead to industrial disputes. This I've already explained to you: autocratic authoritarian attitude of management, non-redressal of grievances. This I have already explained to you. Okay, so now we'll discuss about the consequences of industrial disputes. You have already learnt about the impact of industrial disputes on various stakeholders, which leads to production inefficiency, as well as the economic loss for not only the management by workers, but government as well. Okay, so two basic issues are there. That what does an industrial dispute manifest itself into? That how does it look like? That strikes will be there from the workers' end, and lockouts will be there from the employer's end. Now first we'll understand the definition of these two things, which is very important with respect to the examination, because these two definitions came in the previous year question. Let's understand the definition. So the key word is cessation of work. That we will not work. Workers will stop working jointly. This is very important. Cessation of work, not by a single worker, but jointly, is referred to as strike. And this provision or this definition is provided under Section 2Q of the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. Very important. Please do remember this. Okay. Although the section may or might not come, but the definition, which is exact wording of it, the cessation of work by a body of persons employed in any industry. And the most important thing is acting in combination, not a single person, but the combined body that needs to be ready to stop the work. Similarly, another way is concerted refusal under a common understanding of number of persons to do work. Okay, this is what the strike is. Section 2Q, Industrial Disputes Act 1947. Okay, I hope you understand this. Workers decides to stop the work jointly. Okay, now let's go to the what do we mean by lockouts. Lockout is an initiative from the management's end. They want, in lockout, they close the plant facilities until the workers agree upon their conditions. What do you think the management gain from this lockout? Management thinks that the number of days the plant facility will be locked down, the number of days the workers won't get their wages. And that's why to resume their wages, the workers will agree on their conditions. That is the main aim of lockouts. So it is the closure of plant facilities until the workers agree with the management's conditions. So this is the definition of lockout. Okay. Basic difference between both is whose initiative is this? Strikes from workers' end, that they stop the work until the management agrees to their demands. Lockouts from employers' end, that they close the facilities until the workers accept their demands. Okay, so now let's move on to the next thing, which is types of strikes. Very important. Various types of strikes are there, and this is mentioned, as you can see here also. Stay away strikes, sit down, tool down, go slow, sympathy strike, general strike. Okay, Ghira, lightning, catcall. We'll understand each of these strikes one by one. These are basic definition. Just understand the crux of it. Okay, then you'll be able to distinguish between these. Okay, that is the core demand of whatever we are trying to learn over here. So let's understand each and every strike one by one. So the first is go slow. So the go slow, workers, although they are working in the organization, but they are deliberately slowing the pace of production. In go slow strikes, workers are actually working but they are actually slowing down the process. Why do they think this will help? Because they think slowing down the process will reduce the efficiency of production, and in turn will be an act of resistance from them against the management. So this is deliberate slowing of the production process in order to reduce the production efficiency. Next is hunger strike. Hunger strike is self-understandable, that they engage in a hunger strike in which they fast until the demands are met. Very basic. Anna Hazare has been similar. Gandhian movements are based on hunger strikes. Okay. Let's move on to the lightning wildcat strike. Lightning wildcat strike. It's like a sudden strike where nobody knows that it will come or not. So this is similar to that only, that it is a unofficial strike. Unofficial strike. What type of strikes we call unofficial? Strikes that are not recognized by or not given permission by trade unions. That these are strikes which are not being ordered by trade unions. These are sudden strike of workers without any call or something or prior notification, or nobody has any knowledge with respect to this. Okay, so now let's move on to the next type of strike, which is stay in, sit down, tool down, pen down. All of these are similar type of strikes. In sit down strikes, within machinery, various workers, all the workers will sit on the premises of the whole plant, and this will be impacted because suppose if the workers go on strike and stand outside, so the management can hire contract workers to resume production. But in such type of strikes, the workers will sit on the plant facilities, not allowing management to hire another contract workers to resume the production, because their sitting will not allow them to work in a normal functioning. Understand? So this is what is about sit down. Next is sympathetic strike. Sympathetic strike talks about such strikes that are done in support of other strikes. Suppose in Maruti Suzuki there is a industrial dispute going on, a strike is going on. So the Honda company workers will do a sympathetic strike in support of workers of Maruti Suzuki. So this is all about giving support to other workers, giving sympathy to other workers. That's why it is known as sympathy strike. Okay, so now we'll go to the economic strike. Economic strike is very specific, that it is done for specific economic reasons. These reasons are similar to whatever we have discussed in economic causes, such as wages, working hours, working conditions. Okay, so this is economic strikes. Now let's move on to the general strike. General strike is on the larger scale. Larger scale, what do we mean by that? That throughout Pan India, suppose automobile workers are doing a strike. So this is known as general strike. Companies such as workers of companies, workers of automobile companies, when they all are doing strike throughout India, this is known as general strike. General strike of all the sector, and this can be sectoral, this can be in general also, that all type of workers in all type of sectors will do a general strike. But these all depends on what are the objectives by which these workers are doing strike. Okay, I hope you understand this concept of general strike. Another concept is Ghira. You might have heard this, it is a very Hindi word, घेर लिया, है ना? And what do we mean by Ghirao? Ghirao is not allowing management to leave the premises. Leave the premises. Premises can be the plant. Not allowing management to leave the prices until or unless they accept the demands of workers. So this is another form of strikes which is known as Ghirao. Next is picketing. Picketing is nothing but, suppose this is a gate of some company, XYZ automobile company, and the workers stand outside the main gate. They stand outside in collective, outside the main gate, in order to draw attention of the public and also not allow other workers to enter into the plant premises. So this is known as picketing. Okay, standing outside the main gate to draw public's attention, but and also not allow other people to come under the plant premises. So the production will obviously be stopped. Okay, so next thing is boycott. Boycott, as you all might have understood this concept in various other subjects, that it just refers to not using or refuse to use companies' products. And what will this do? This will reduce the marketability. It will reduce the marketability of the products of the company in question. Okay. So I hope you all have understood that what are these various type of strikes. So any question which comes with respect to them, I hope you will be able to explain and do the question. Now let's move on to the next thing. I've told you each and every definition. Okay, you can feel free to go back to the notes and understand in depth. And next, obviously we've discussed about industrial disputes, and now we should also discuss that how do we settle these industrial disputes? What are the existing machinery, legal machinery, institutional machinery with respect to the resolution of these industrial disputes? Okay, so in India, we have three major types of industrial resolution. First of all is conciliation, then it is arbitration, then it is adjudication. And these process are hierarchical also. First, we'll go for conciliation, then we'll go for arbitration, and lastly, if all the options are utilized, then this is option of last resort, adjudication, which is the highest legal body which can resolve the industrial disputes. And in each and everything, we'll discuss about conciliation officer, board of conciliation, industrial tribunal, national tribunal too. Okay, so this is the main aim. In the next lecture, we'll do this. So before going to the next lecture, let's first try to do previous year question based on the topics that we have discussed in the current lecture. So this is previous year question. This was asked in 2020. Both questions were asked in 2020. Please do this, and I hope these questions can be done now very easily, that because this is the same definition we have discussed in the primary phase of our lecture. Do this, try to do this question, then I'll give the answer. Okay. Which of the following disputes are considered as trade disputes under the provision of the Trade Union Act 1926? Any dispute. What did we discuss? It refers to any dispute of any person connected with four things we've discussed: employment, non-employment, terms of employment, and conditions, working conditions. The answer should be C. Wasn't it an easy question? We've discussed it in the initial phase only. So by seeing this question, you understand that not many in-depth questions are being asked. Just basic understanding of these terms, such as industrial disputes, are being asked. So let's similarly, next question which you will do, this is also similar basic interpretations of whatever questions, whatever concepts we've discussed. Do this question. Match list 1 with list 2. It's match the following question. Term and explanation. See, basic term and explanation of it. I have explained to you strikes and lockout. If you can find the right answer for C and D, you will be able to pick the correct option. Tell, what did we discuss with respect to strike? That it is cessation of work. And in lockout, what did we discuss? It refers to temporary closing down of workplace by the management. If you understand from where these concepts are coming, this is by employees and this is by the management, then you'll be able to easily distinguish between the concepts. So C4, D3, C4 and D3. This is the only option. So A will be the correct option. And while doing these two things, also, please, while doing a question, although you might have come to the right answer, but also learn from other two options also, that closure refers to permanent closing of a place of employment, and workman, any person employed in an industry to do skilled, unskilled or manual work. Question may come that what do we mean by workman? A person who is skilled, unskilled, or who have been employed for doing manual work. Correct the right options. So option will be similarly like this, and you have to pick the 1, 2, 3 option. Okay. So in the next lecture, we'll start with the machinery that are present in our constitutional setting or the legal setting for the resolution of industrial disputes. Thank you for now. We'll meet in the next lecture.